I'm Scott Allen Miller. It is the 3rd of November, 2019, and this is my vlog of daily life living in Central America. Yes, you heard that right. It is 2019. If you're watching this in 2022 or later, you may be saying, but this is not recorded in 2019. I can tell for a lot of reasons, including the date on YouTube, and you'd be correct. Let me explain what's happened. So back in 2019, I started doing the vlog every day, and on November 2nd, Alan and Rachel and I flew to Nicaragua, and I was very excited about continuing the show. One of the reasons I started the show when I did was to get 2 weeks of content, get a couple viewers, only a few, and come to Nicaragua and create some content in Nicaragua while we were here. I thought it'd be really exciting and interesting because my family was staying behind. This is actually my first trip on my own without the family. Since 2009, when I did a trip to Germany all by myself, have I done a trip without the family. In 2012, we went to Europe for a few months with the kids. In 2015, we moved to Europe and spent years traveling all together. Dominica managed to do a few trips, including one back to the United States and one to the Bahamas without the family, but I have done all of my trips with the family since that German trip 10 years ago, almost exactly 10 years and 2 months. Today, we are headed to Nicaragua. Well, today we arrived in Nicaragua, and we have this great story, and I was so looking forward to bringing you guys all of that in the vlog, and I thought Rachel was going to do it with me, and it just didn't end up happening, and I didn't really get any video, but I did get a lot of pictures. Now, looking back, we're starting to do the throwback on the vlog in 2022, and as I get to these dates are missing. There's nothing to link you guys to, and there's something really special missing because those episodes didn't exist. So while there's going to be tons of content that eventually we do in the throwback and it's never able to be recreated, some of this is really iconic, and it can be. And one of the things that makes this possible is that every day we were on this trip, I was taking photographs, even if just with my cell phone, my Samsung at the time, but I did have my Panasonic Lumix with me in the planning stages of making the vlog entries, and so I have the photo footage, even if not video footage, from that trip. And so I want to go through and do what we can to recreate those dates, because honestly, this is one of my most iconic trips. It was really short, but it led to so many things, including obviously us moving to Nicaragua 2 years later, and less than 2 years later, a year and a half later, and planning almost immediately. This trip kicked immediately off the chain of events that led for both Alan and I moving here to Nicaragua and Rachel moving to Belgium. All of us were living in the United States at the time that this started. So if you're following along, yesterday, which had a vlog made 3 years ago, we had missed our flight on the 1st. On the 2nd, we were able to fly down. We got in at night. Rachel and I did a bunch of exploring last night, and today we started our real time in Nicaragua. We're in San Juan Del Sur. We're staying at the Barrio Cafe Hotel right in the middle of town. Got up this morning, and I have all my notes on this. Like, I go through the photographs and put together the day so that this is pretty accurate, I'm pretty sure. We started the day having breakfast at the Barrio Cafe. That was Rachel, Alan, and I. Teeny, who's with us, was in the room, came out, saw us out there, felt the heat wave, said nope, went back into the room and called it a morning. So we lost the entire morning with her, and we pretty much just hung out at the Barrio Cafe talking about Nicaragua and what we were going to do, exploring the food there, relaxing, talking about things that Rachel and I discovered the night before. Once Teeny was finally able to get up and get going, which was late morning, we did some exploring around town and walked a bit, trying to figure out what we wanted to do for lunch and show her where things were, and Alan had not seen things yet either. Unfortunately, and I mentioned, so some of this I already did in the throwback. If you're watching the 2022 episode, I didn't realize I had no video and just wasn't prepared that I was going to make one. Once I realized I had all the photographs in Flickr, which, by the way, if you have not checked out my Flickr, feel free to do so. All of my photographs go there, so you can follow along in still photo form, just like you can in video form on here. I think it's interesting for those who want to know more or see my photography, because I was a professional photographer. I do have a lot of photos, over 40,000 and something like 60 or 70 million views. Like, it's pretty popular. So we had a dog get hit right in front of us. The dog walked away, but this did not bode well for the coming week. All of us very much dog people, and it was very upsetting. Even though he did walk away, it was directly in front of us and really depressing. We walked along the beach, Didn't find anything that stood out that we wanted to get for food because Teeny required that we go to some place with air conditioning. We all explained that there was no places with air conditioning, but she would have none of that. The fact that we explained it did not in any way dissuade her from she was going to keep walking in the heat of the day to try to find one. Of course, going out in the heat of the day made her need one that much more, and the more she kept trying to find one, the worse it got. So this was just a deteriorating situation. We got back into town as we tried to just wind through the streets to find anything, and we found a place called the Art Factory. I got some iconic photos of both Rachel and Alan on the Art Factory's wall, or maybe it's the Art Warehouse, but something like that. And then we did some shopping there, and I actually bought a few paintings for Dominica because she likes to collect paintings from places that we have been. And when we lived in Nicaragua in 2015, we actually had to leave in a hurry, and we never got to finish our art shopping that we had intended to do. And it's hard to believe now that we live in Nicaragua, but in 2015, we didn't know we were ever going to come back. We knew we loved it, but we had so much exploration around the world to do that coming back to Nicaragua was not necessarily on our radar. And we, at the time, had tried to buy artwork everywhere that we had lived. Notably, we had gotten quite a bit from Spain. And so that was just part of our planning for something we were going to do for creating memories as a family. And in Nicaragua, we had done some shopping for it. We had gone and looked at galleries and stuff. We had an idea of what we liked, and we had planned a time to go buy that artwork. And then we ended up returning to the United States and going to live in Galveston for a month. And at that time, we missed our chance to go to the art galleries. And so this was my attempt, because we didn't know we were ever going to come back again. I didn't know if Dominica was ever going to see Nicaragua again. So I went and bought some artwork from Nicaragua for her. Now we live here, so it's a little bit silly that we moved that to the States and then moved it back down here. But that was why I did that, and I felt it was an important thing at the time. So we did that, and then we finally got Teeny to give up on the air conditioning thing. We walked down to the beach and ended up at Lago Azul, which is one of the restaurants sitting right on the beach. One of the big ones. They're very open air. Tons of air comes through it. Like, you get lots of breeze off the ocean. It's really not bad. You do not need air conditioning. If you don't walk around in the middle of the heat of the afternoon, it's not a problem. I believe we were between 84 and 86 most of this week. It really wasn't that hot numerically, but the humidity was very, very high. And I remember specifically, even Rachel was dying of the heat, and I was sweating like crazy. The humidity was truly hot. And coming from the cold weather in the U.S. at the time, Utah and Texas, this was much hotter than we had been adjusted to up there. After lunch, pretty much Teeny was done for the day, and Alan was pretty warm, so they went and just napped and called it an afternoon. Rachel and I had the afternoon and evening to ourselves, and this made for one of our more iconic days of just travel in general. The two of us went out and explored everything we could in town on this day. And it's funny because looking back now in my memory, our time in San Juan Del Sur was much longer than it actually was. Sorry, I'm switching hands here. And so much of what we did was compressed into a really short amount of time. We were just racing from thing to thing, trying to get as much in as we possibly could. So we ended up going, first we knew there was a microbrew in town that we had heard about. So we went to that brewery and hung out there, got a little bit of food, just snacks, and tried several of the different beers. We were not very impressed, but it was fun. It's a nice venue. And we hung out there for a while. It was a neat thing to go do. We watched an asado get set up across the street, and we're like, oh, this looks really interesting. And once they were up and running, we stopped over there and picked up dinner for $2. Rachel and I had dinner. It was great. We got it there to go, walked it back to the Barrio Cafe, and ate up on their third floor overlooking town, which is a really nice place to just sit and eat. One of the advantages of staying at that hotel. And I constantly talk about the fact that it was only $2 to do that. Like, it was so cheap. From there, we decided to go explore and see what there was on the waterfront. We ended up at the Iguana Bar, which is kind of an American place to go. And actually, it's owned by a friend of Rachel and mine's father's friend. So it's a bit, so Nick, who's a friend of Rachel and mine and a customer of my company, coincidentally, his father has a friend, and that friend is the owner of the Iguana Bar. That's the explanation, yes. And so we went there, got blue Lamborghinis, and sat out on the beach, had crabs running all over our feet, and it was nice, but there was like no one there, and we're like, this is not the place to go at all. This is very extra and hero. It's like meant for drunk backpackers, like not really a place you would go. From there, we headed to Republica, pretty close to the Barrio Cafe. Republica is one of the, I believe, Canadian bars in town. Pretty nice venue. We like it there. It's got a pool table. They have good drinks. We got a couple cocktails, and then we discovered their ginger rum, which is they take a bottle of rum and just fill it full of ginger root until it is so steeped in ginger. It is so strong and delicious. We really enjoyed that. That was good. And then from there, we walked. We had seen El Social, which is, at the time, half the size it is today, 3 years later. They've added a pool and a whole nother building. It's giant. Back then, it was just the sushi restaurant and cocktail lounge on the triangle overlooking one of the main intersections in San Juan del Sur. We went up there. We got the front table with the view out the front. They weren't very busy. We got a little bit of sushi and a couple cocktails and hung out there for a while. And that with 3 bars after doing the brewery, that was pretty good. We did 4 main stops for the night. After we finished up at El Social, Rachel and I headed out and walked the beach for a while, and we were lucky enough to actually come into contact with the Sunday Funday group and were able to join them. So we went from hanging out and doing bar hopping in the middle of town. We had seen earlier in the day when we were walking around with Alan and Teeny, we had seen the pickup trucks with the Sunday Funday crowd going from place to place. So we've been paying kind of attention to that. We had talked about doing it, but we weren't able to, because Rachel and I have been planning all along, but we weren't able to do any of the planning that we had wanted to do because we missed an entire day because of our flight. So we were really bummed about that. But we ended up hooking up with the Sunday Funday group and joining them for the last many hours of the evening. And so we actually went until about 4 o'clock in the morning. We shut down Sunday Funday, which is about 3 o'clock, and then we wandered with a few of the stragglers from Sunday Funday and found other bars in town that were open later than Sunday Funday and kept drinking out with them. We actually ended up doing karaoke at 3:30 in the morning. It was a wild night and pretty crazy, but we had really wanted to do Sunday Funday. That was the one thing that Rachel and I were trying to get onto the schedule while we were here, and we thought we were going to have missed it because of the flight problems, and we got to do it. We really had a lot of fun. It was really cool. We got to party on the beach and do the whole thing. It was just hundreds of backpackers. It wasn't like it was at the peak in like 2017, but it was really big, not like it is now because COVID really destroyed that whole thing. And in 2019, it was a pretty big party still. So we were very glad that worked out, and we got to go out with people afterwards. We ended up wandering around after that, found super late night quesadillas, and this is the night that famously I tell the story, how good are the quesadillas in San Juan del Sur on the street? Well, they were good enough that Rachel got one, dropped it onto the dirty, sandy sidewalk just off the beach. So it's like salt and dirt and sand, and dogs are out there and people, like it is so, and she just picked it up and ate it. So that is how good the quesadillas are. And she will tell you, those were good quesadillas. And I have had them years since, and it is excellent quesadillas on the street out there. But that was just one of the best things, getting to do Sunday Funday back when it was still at its really busy. We had no idea that COVID was going to hit and that Sunday Funday was going to basically go away for years. So we're really glad that we got to do that back when it was still a really big thing. It was a big event for us. Called it a night, but it was a really, really cool day overall, and Rachel and I had just tons of fun. For Alan and Teeny, it was pretty exhausting. The whole new country, heat wave, stress, like there was just a lot going on. But for Rachel and I, this was party day. We had a great time last night getting the overview of town, and then today we just did San Juan del Sur. We had such a great overview of what there was, and we walked town a bit additionally and had a really good feel for things that we wanted to do extra while we were there, what we were going to discover and try tomorrow, and things we didn't want to miss, like the Krusty Krab. Looks like it's going to be, I think that's the right name, something we want to do while we're here. We're hoping to hit Sunday Funday while we're here. And I really need to look up the dates and see which day is which, because I'm not actually sure which. Sometimes putting the pictures together and figuring out what day what event was on can be pretty difficult. We're actually only here for a few days. Today is the 3rd. We're here for the 4th and the 5th. On the 6th, we're transitioning into Granada. We're going to be there for a couple days, and then we're going to leave from up there. So our time in San Juan del Sur is actually very short. When we originally were coming down, we thought it was going to be much longer. We lost an entire day because of the flight, and we kind of tacked on Granada a little bit more than I think we should have, but you know, originally, I mean, the purpose of this trip was to come down and show Alan around San Juan del Sur, because we were pretty sure that this is where he wanted to retire and buy a home in the relative short term. So we really wanted to spend some time and test things out. And he's done years of research on this location to determine if that is likely to be correct. And it really does look like super promising. So we're putting in a lot of work trying to figure out if this is really where he's going to want to be or not. So that is kind of a lot of the focus of the trip. That's why it's kind of going the way that it is. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe. Yes, remember, this is a 3-year kind of dedicated throwback. This is the official one for the day. That blurb, that was a spider on my GoPro. It ran directly across the lens. I've been watching it run all over. That was pretty funny. Ask any questions below. Leave your comments. If you'd like to sponsor the channel, you can buy me a coffee. That directly sponsors me on the channel. I'm going to be doing this for the next week to catch up these videos and give you guys this content as to where things were 3 years ago. I'm going to kind of not do the throwbacks on the main video so that we have these instead, because I think this is way better for this week. Then we'll go back to the throwback once we have something to throw back to. And I will see all of you tomorrow.